Hello guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel, and my name is Dharyll from Bad State U. So for today's video, we're going to tackle about the chapter 2, configure a network operating system. So in this video, I'm just going to talk about some important key terms and key informations in the chapter 2. So we're not going to configure in this video since I made already video in that chapter 2, which I configure devices and answer some activities in that chapter 2. So for today's video, it is just only the key information and important terms and information that you will be needed in this chapter. So without further ado, let's get started. So chapter 2, configure a network operating system. So basically, in this chapter, you will learn to configure both devices that connect to the network. So, and devices such as, for example, is PCs and router. No, just PCs and laptops. So that's the example of end devices. So, and the devices that network together. So those are the intermediary devices like routers and switches. So learning to configure the Cisco Interwork operating system or the Cisco iOS on the Cisco routers and switches is a large part of the Cisco CCNA programs of study. So this chapter will introduce the Cisco iOS, and in it detailed the various modes of the Cisco iOS and examine the basic commands and structure that is used to configuring. So it also walk through the initial settings of the Cisco iOS switches devices, including the setting, name, and limiting access to the device's configuration, and also configuring banner messages and saving the configuration. So like I said a while ago, I already made videos about configuring devices and have a banner message and some introduction about the commands using in configuration. So if you want to check that video, go to my channel and check it. So it will help you in your CCNA study. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is the operating system. So of course, all of the end devices and network devices requires an operating system with, or the OS. So an operating system or OS is the interface between a computer user and computer hardware. So an operating system is a software which perform all of the basic tasks like file management, memory management, process management, hiding input and output, and also controlling the peripheral devices such as disk, drives, and printers. So the portion of the OS that interacts directly with the computer hardware is known as the kernel. So this kernel to perform uses useful functions, uh, process need access to peripheral connected to the computer, so which are controlled by the kernel through drivers, the device's drivers. So it provides the operating system with the informations of how to, for example, how to control and communicate with a certain piece of hardware. So that is all about the kernel part, and the portion that interfaces with application and user is known as the shell. So in this shell portion, the user can interact with the shell using a command line interface or the CLI, or a graphical user interface or the GUI. So that is all about the operating system. So next thing that we're going to tackle is the IP addresses and the IPv4 and the IPv6, or the Internet Protocol version 4, the Internet Protocol version 6. So the use of the IP addresses is the primary means of enabling devices to locate one another and establish end-to-end communication on the internet. So each end devices on the network must be configured with an IP address. For example, is of the end devices that you need to configure with an IP address is the computer or desktop, laptops, network printers, security camera, and also our smartphones have their own respective IP addresses. So those are some devices that requires an IP addresses. So IP stands for the IP Internet Protocol, and there are two IP versions that currently coexist in the global internet, which is here presented is the IPv4 and the IPv6, or the Internet Protocol version 6 and the version 4. So IP addresses are made of binary values and drives the routing all data over the internet. So IPv4 addresses are 32 bits long, and IPv6 addresses which is 128 bits long. And if you're going to decide which IP version if you're going to use this, it is preferred that you will use the IPv6 because it is much better than the IPv4 at making sure that the internet traffic gets to the correct destination without being intercepted. And also the IPv6 or the Internet Protocol version 6 is more secure than the IPv4. So it is recommended that to use the IPv6 or the Internet Protocol version 6. So with an IPv4 IP addresses, there are five classes of available IP ranges to Class A, Class B, Class C, Class D, and Class E. So with those given IP ranges, only the Class A and Class B and Class C are commonly used nowadays. And next is also an IP address serves through two primary functions. So it is used as an internet or as an interface identification for a network or of machines, and also serve to provide a location of that machine. So it is used, for example, when your device is lost, especially thus your smartphones. So when you report it, they will going to track the IP address. So that is why it is important that your devices have the IP address. So much like a physical address for a home or a business also. So that is all about the IP address or the IPv4 and the IPv6. So next that we're going to tackle, and this is the last thing that we're going to discuss, is the Cisco iOS. So the service provided by the Cisco iOS are access using a command line interface or the CLI, which is accessed by either the console port and the UX port, so, or through the SSH or the telnet. So any of those can be accessed the CLI or the command line interface. So after that you are connected to the CLI, you can make configuration changes to the Cisco iOS devices. So the Cisco iOS is it is designed as a model operating system. So that means that you can navigate through various hierarchical modes of the iOS. So each mode supports different iOS commands. So if you're going to explore more about the Cisco iOS, there's a lot of commands that you will going to use. So each commands have their own different functions and uses. So basically that's it for this chapter. So I'm just going to have a recap. So in this chapter, you're just going to learn and configuration both devices. So end devices and the intermediary devices. So the end devices are the computers or your desktop or laptop, and the intermediary devices is, for example, the switches and the router. So also in this chapter, we learn also how to uh, to use the command. So in configuring banner message and saving the configuration. So also I've already discussed to you the IP addresses, so each type and the class and the Cisco iOS. So that's it for today's video. And if you learned something and if you like this video, so please leave a like and share, and thank you for watching. So please catch up for my next upcoming video, which, well, I'm going to tackle about the chapter 3. So thank you for watching. Bye bye.